Forward button. Thank you very much. The organizers of this webinar, the NGSS-ESS Working Group, myself, Aida Awad, representing NAGT, Ed Robeck from AGI, and Missy Holzer from Nesta, and Bradley Cotton working the dials there behind the scenes for us. Thank you so much, Bradley, for your support. We appreciate that. Our presenter today will be Jessica Bean. We'll be turning things over to her in just a couple of minutes. I want to remind you that we will save a few minutes at the end for discussion and Q&A, and there will be a post-webinar evaluation survey, which is important if you would like to get a certificate of participation for this webinar, but it's really important to us too. So we'll give you that information for accessing that survey as we get towards the end of our webinar. And announcements, upcoming webinar for March on St. Patty's Day, so everybody will have to wear their green. We are going to be presenting a webinar entitled, "Why is, if it can't be grown, it must be mined, important in your ESS classroom?" And it's a deep dive into the website Mineral ID, a practical online study guide, along with activities and resources. I think everyone will find that very interesting. Watch your inbox for registration information coming to you very soon. And as always, all of our webinars are available up on the AGI YouTube channel. There is a playlist there. Please visit there if you miss any of the webinars or would like to go back and review them. So before I turn things over, I want to remind you all that the chat box is not a question box only, it is a chat box, meaning that we can have a great discussion there. So please feel free to use the chat box throughout the course of the webinar for comments, thoughts, ideas. Something pops into your head, hey, this would be great in the classroom, drop it in there, as well as questions, of course. We'll be harvesting those from there. So without further ado, I am going to stop sharing. And Jessica, it's all yours. Take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you. So everyone should now be able to see my screen. We all good? All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really am excited to share with you today some of our resources from the Understanding Global Change Project. As was mentioned, my name is Jessica Bean, and I'm from UC Berkeley, and I work within the Museum of Paleontology that's nestled within the Integrative Biology Department at Berkeley. So there's my email in case you have any questions, and also our main website address and Twitter, which I'll put in the chat at the end of the presentation. So today I'm going to give you an overview of the project goals. So why did we create this Understanding Global Change project? What does it do? And then give you a tour of the website and also the framework that is sort of the core of UGC. And then finally, hopefully at the end, we're going to have some time to play Earth System Shuffle. If we don't have time, I'm going to give you the links and you can check it out for yourself on your own time. But that's one of the games that we play both online, virtually, and also in the classroom using these tools. So the Understanding Global Change program has really provided three main components. So there's a core conceptual framework that helps to organize the complexity of climate change and global change topics. Well, you'll hear me use the phrase global change throughout this presentation, but really that encompasses climate change as well as other changes that may not be explicitly climate. And so we've created tools for constructing visualizations, or also known as explanatory models, of the Earth system to show that complexity and how all the different parts of the Earth are interconnected and related. And then finally, I'm going to briefly show you some resources that we created for designing coherent instructional units. How do you actually design units with these practices and these tools in mind? And I run PLCs across the country to support teachers in developing units about global change topics. And this is probably a graphic you've seen or floating around the internet, but really the whole goal of UGC is to take what seem like discrete bits of information or thinking about different parts of the Earth and really connect the dots and really help students create knowledge that is usable and transferable and helps them understand how the system works when we look at how the world works. And really coherent learning, like again, connecting the dots and having students understand how the world works requires this process of thinking about the world and all of its different parts and their relationships. I just want to point out really quickly, we have some amazing colleagues and collaborators in this work, including HHMI Biointeractive, the CLEAN group and network, and our work has also been featured in Miller and Lincoln Biology by Pearson and also National Geographic resources. So there were also a lot of great resources that were already on the table, that already existed when we started this project a number of years ago. And so the point of this work really was to also be very responsive to the next generation science standards. Because when you look at the standards, like the performance expectations, you see the demands of three-dimensional learning, using modeling, thinking about interactions. So here's an example of a 5th grade standard. You develop a model using an example to describe ways that the geosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, or atmosphere interact, right? Or a high school performance expectation, analyze geoscience data to make the claim that one change to Earth's surface can create feedbacks that cause changes to other Earth systems. So really thinking about stability and change, systems and system models, while students are engaging in the practices of science, like analyzing, interpreting data, or developing and using models for purposes of explaining how the world works. So just to start us off, I want you to think for 30 seconds and just maybe brainstorm on your own paper or on your computer, like, what is a system and why is thinking about systems useful? Because this word system shows up in both the NGSS, again, science and engineering practices, as well as the cross-cutting concepts. So feel free to use diagrams or words or whatever is best for you to express those ideas. Just give it a few more seconds. So what is a system and why is thinking about systems useful? So now what I'd like to do is to make our thinking visible. So what are you thinking? So I want you to actually share out on a Jamboard some of these ideas. You can use the sticky notes, which I'll show you how to do in a second. And again, there are many ways to show your ideas, however you want to show them, using diagrams or words. This is what a Jamboard looks like in case you have not used them before. I still find people who have not experienced this Google tool before, but you can create a sticky note by clicking this little square with the writing in it. And you can click between the different pages. We don't need to do that yet, but there are ways of navigating to different pages on Jamboards. So what I'd like you to do is take a look at these. Oops, sorry, that was not what I meant to do. So take a look at the chat. And in the chat are 2 links. And if your first name starts with A through K versus L through Z, go to different Jamboards because we can't accommodate everyone on the same Jamboard with this many people. So click over to, is everyone getting into the Jamboard okay? All right, great. So again, start making those ideas visible. What is a system? Why is thinking about systems useful? Again, using diagrams or words or whatever works for you. And I'm going to click over to the Jamboard now so I can start to see what's happening. Looks like people are able to join. Uh-oh, it says the Jamboard closed, that there are too many requests. Okay, I'm going to make a copy really quickly. So I'm going to make a 3rd Jamboard that we can use. Oh, looks like some people were able to get in if they just try it again. And we'll use these same Jamboard links for the entire presentation. So as long as you have one open, you can just keep it open. Okay, so here's a 3rd Jamboard link, just in case you're having trouble getting in. And I see some ideas starting to pop up. Ah, awesome. All right.
Jessica, that 3rd Jamboard is view only. You need to make it editable, please.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
I think I did. Let me check again. Yep, anyone on the internet should be able to edit. So maybe try it one more time. Oh, sorry, maybe I'm on the wrong one. No, it looks like people can edit. But yeah, let me know if you're still having
it's
trouble.
view only. Look at the get link. Go
Oh.
back, go back, go back.
Yes, that one.
Sorry. All right, there we go.
Change it
Thank
to edit.
you.
Perfect.
Done.
If you're on that third Jamboard and it says view only in the top right corner, just refresh.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so I'll just give everyone a few more minutes, but I already see some great ideas. So systems about interactions and allowing and creating, observing ripple effects. Ooh, I like that phrase. A system is an organized way of showing relationships, various ideas, concepts, variables that are interconnected, interactions, connections, helps to visualize, influence, connect cause and effect, consider interacting parts, and make sure all stakeholders are brought to the table. Interesting. So really thinking about a lot of different communities who might be affected by various changes or in the system. System equals all elements together, usually in a non-linear interaction. The system is comprised of parts that work, oops, sorry, I can't read that, work together. Awesome. And someone uploaded a graphic that shows interactions in the environment, society, economy, ecology. Awesome. So again, we can use that word systems in so many different realms, right? Important cause and effect feedbacks, find your place in that system, see what some of the other Jamboards say. Help students organize information, see connections, so talking about how they're useful, consider interactions, make connections between ideas, subject matter, people, historical moments, etc. Multiple cycles, and let's look at the final one. So again, talking about interactions again, and parts, pieces, people working together, interacting. Think about open and closed systems. Oh, interesting. And what's the difference? Helps us understand the bigger picture, making an inventory of the parts, a menu of things that could be the cause, looking at cause and effect, gives us a frame of reference. Okay, these are all awesome ideas. So thank you. So you can also be thinking about, like, is this what your students would come up with? Would your students know this? When you're using that word systems or thinking about systems thinking. So thank you for all of your ideas. And I often ask everyone in my workshops to use this question to get things started. Here's some of the examples from in-person workshops I've done, posters, again, with all of the same ideas that similar ideas to what you had come up with, showing interactions and relationships in the bigger picture. Again, lots of different ways to represent those interconnections and relationships. And of course, NGSS gives us its own definition of systems and system models. A system is an organized group of related objects or components, and models can be used for understanding and predicting the behavior of systems, so that word behavior being very, very important. And of course, we can look at Appendix G in the NGSS and look at how different grade levels would be expected to work with systems. And how they would be able to articulate those ideas, so that they would be able to make models that represent interactions, inputs and outputs by 6th grade, and by 9th to 12th, that they're really thinking about boundaries and initial conditions, and can really use systems to analyze and understand problems and topics. And there is evidence from the literature that systems thinking is really important, especially if we're talking about topics like climate change, and to support students in having what we call a pro-ecological worldview, a worldview where people understand how the world is interconnected and why climate change is something that we should be concerned about and responsive to. So this was a great paper that came out of the Yale Climate Change Communication Group a few years ago. And I also just really briefly want to point your attention to this paper by Gillison that really talked about the use and importance of using explicit systems language in the classroom, and how that can be useful in supporting students in thinking about systems and using this idea of systems. So Gillison and her colleagues created some interesting worksheets that are part of the paper that talking about these different, again, ideas that are related to understanding what systems are and how they function, thinking about boundaries and components and inputs and outputs and feedbacks. And she also provided some really great questions to consider when you're asking students to be thinking about these different types of system characteristics. And yes, I will get that Yale article link for you Let me see if I have it. I don't have it on the slide, but I will get that for you. Great question. So again, ultimately the goal though is that students and even adult learners can really think about building these connections and explore the world and think about it as this interaction between physical, chemical, and biological processes that shape what we experience and what we observe every day. So, okay, so how do we take this complexity and this idea of systems and turn this into something useful, a tool that could be used in the classroom in lots of different ways? So that brings us to our UGC, our Understanding Global Change framework, and I'll show you our website. So the goal of our Understanding Global Change tools is to discover why the climate environment changes, again, using that systems lens and your place in the Earth system and paths to a resilient future, right? Because we have created a lot of problems, but we also have a lot of solutions that we can be looking for. So here's the main page of our Understanding Global Change website. I'm going to put the link in the chat just so you have it there, but I'm going to be flipping through some slides that'll show you, that'll provide you, it's not copying and pasting, but now it went to the site. Okay, sorry, one second. There you go. It's in the chat. You can copy out of the chat, ugc.berkeley.edu. And so this is our main, again, our main website. And you can see throughout our website that we use this Earth scene. So this is sort of just supposed to be a generic, ocean to mountain scene that represents a lot of different places on the Earth. So it provides a place where you can put your ideas about, interactions and relationships and how the Earth system works. So you'll see this Earth scene that we use for modeling throughout the presentation, and it can be used and edited and altered in a lot of different ways. But from our main page, you can get to this introduction of the site, which will introduce you to this Earth scene and some of the other tools that we use, including our framework. So we have this central framework that is organized into three main categories. The first is that there is the Earth system, and there are the major processes that shape the Earth system through time. So things like ocean circulation and atmospheric circulation and the rock cycle and the water cycle, right? These are things that have happened for billions of years. So we can look at the Earth system and these really big processes that shape the world around us. But then there are ways that we can be thinking about the measurable changes. So the data and the evidence of how do we know that the world is changing over time? So we can measure things like temperature or biodiversity or extinction rates or ocean acidification or air quality, right? These are the things that really provide the evidence of knowing how much and how fast the world changes. And then finally, if we really want to understand how and why the world changes, we have to look at the ultimate causes of change. And of course, in deep time, we would look to non-human causes, things like volcanism or, other tectonic events, the distribution of continents, meteorite impacts, Milankovitch cycles. But of course, if we're looking at especially the last 200 years, we have to look to human causes of change. So especially burning of fossil fuels, agricultural activities, invasive species, and other things that humans have done to the environment. And I'll expand on that idea in a little bit. But what we've done is take this framework, this sort of central organizing theme, and we've created a graphic to represent these major categories. So again, we have the causes of global change on the outside, which put pressure and change how the Earth system works, these major processes in the world, like the water cycle or the greenhouse effect. And then from those changes to the processes, we can measure things that tell us how much and how fast the world is changing. And you'll also notice that we divided the Earth system and also these measurable changes into the four spheres: atmosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and geosphere. So again, you can now build up this diagram with various levels of complexity. I'm sure some of you can already think of other things you might add to this diagram. And I'll show you really quickly how a team of scientists and educators that I led at UC Berkeley further developed this graphic. So you can access all of the different topics that are on our website and on our infographic through this What is Global Change page. We also have an Understanding Global Change 101, which will step you through this very much in the same way that I'm doing now, as a slideshow that you can download and edit and use in the classroom or share. And again, I would really recommend this for high school and above, if you're just going to send students to the website to look at the at Global Change 101. But again, you can download these slides that I'm showing you here and use them for your own purposes, or edit them and share them with your students. And this is what the page looks like. And as I mentioned, you can download these PowerPoints that are the slides that I'm showing you now. So again, if we come back to this central graphic, I usually start with unpacking this graphic and adding to it by looking at how the Earth system works. So this yellow circle in the middle. And so the first thing we need to think about, if we're thinking about how the world works, why it functions the way it does, we have to look at our sources of energy, right? And that's primarily determined by how much sunlight is reflected or absorbed, how much heat is radiated from the surface of the Earth and in our atmosphere, and how much of Earth's internal heat from when the Earth formed and also radioactive decay is driving different processes on Earth. So this is our global energy budget, right? This is the source of our energy for how the world works. And so of course on our website, we have lots of supporting graphics where you can see, and understand what do we mean by absorption of sunlight? What do we mean by re-radiation of heat? So again, you can unpack those through our reading and exploring our website content. So if we want to keep adding to this diagram, if we want to think about our atmosphere and our hydrosphere, what are the processes that shape our atmosphere and our hydrosphere through time? So that would be the greenhouse effect and atmospheric and ocean circulation, which we know are very much related. And of course, our water cycle. So again, we have lots of content on our website and graphics to help you understand and unpack these concepts with your students. And then if we want to turn to our biosphere and our geosphere, we have things like evolution and species interactions related to ecology, right, in the biosphere. And of course, the photosynthesis and respiration and those processes that have resulted from evolutionary processes. And then within the geosphere, things like plate tectonics and our rock cycle. And we did call out weathering specifically as a process because of its important role in the long-term carbon cycle and overall greenhouse gas levels in our atmosphere. We can think about how all these processes are interrelated through the elemental cycles. So the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, and the phosphorus cycle. We know the phosphorus doesn't go in the atmosphere, but you get the picture here that obviously elements, and you can add to this, other elements cycle through the different spheres. And then finally, if you add up all these processes together, what you have are the main processes that shape our climate and our ecosystems. If you look at any climate, different climates across Earth's surface or any ecosystem, these are the main processes that are at work that shape the world around us. So now let's turn to our causes of change. So we can think, as I mentioned before, about both human and non-human causes of change. So again, in deep time, over tens of thousands to millions of years, we have to look at these non-human causes of change that shape the world around us. Changes in solar radiation or Milankovitch cycles or spin tilted orbit. Meteorite impacts, luckily we're not having too many of those recently, any big ones. So, and also thinking about, tectonic processes like distribution of continents, mountain building. Again, volcanism, something that continues to happen, but not on a scale that causes major changes globally to our climate and ecosystems, but still an ongoing process. So again, we have lots of resources on our website to help you unpack these topics. So again, thinking about Milankovitch cycles, again, over tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of years. Why has climate changed due to Earth's spin, tilt, and orbit? Same thing with thinking about solar radiation. We can see the sun going through these 11-year sunspot cycles, but we continue to see Earth's global surface temperature climb. So the reality is that Earth's overall surface temperature and that increase is not caused by changes in solar radiation. Although over long periods of time, we do see these changes having an influence, right? Over hundreds to thousands of years, but not on the timescales that we are considering today in terms of how we explain the global changes that we're experiencing. So here we are, we have to turn our attention to these human causes of change. So burning of fossil fuels, agricultural activities, deforestation, Other things, again, we think about global change broadly, not just climate change. So just habitat loss and invasive species and fishing and hunting, which of course we can all connect back to climate change in some way, but we want to call out in this broad framework. We also included some hopeful language here, right? I mean, there are a lot of problems that humans have caused, but we also have solutions. We have renewable energy, we have innovation. We can, deforest areas. We can also plant trees. We can have habitat loss, but we can also have restoration. So again, this gives you a place to put all of these ideas about the causes of change and what we understand that causes to shape the way the world looks the way it does today and over time. So again, just there are resources on our website for thinking about these different causes and the interrelations of things like freshwater use or burning of fossil fuels. But again, also ways that we can mitigate and adapt to global change. How do we use renewable energy or engage in reforestation and habitat restoration? So finally, I want to turn our attention to the center of this diagram. So these are the measurable changes, right? This is our data and our evidence of how we know the world is changing and how much and how fast, right? That we can measure over time, either directly or indirectly through proxies and ways we can understand the deep past in deep time. But we've again divided this up into the 4 spheres, right? Atmosphere, biosphere, hydrosphere, and geosphere. And these are where you can also get ideas for NGSS phenomena. If you're looking for phenomena, again, things that are measurable, observable, that can anchor units of instruction, you can often start by looking at these measurable changes at this list of this graphic and think about, oh, I could make that about this local problem or this local change in my community or in my region, right? But these are measurable changes that we're trying to understand all over the globe that scientists are collecting data on all the time. So if we look at our atmosphere and our hydrosphere, right, we measure weather and extreme events, so temperature, precipitation, clouds, and wind over long periods of time, 30 years or more. We would think about that as climate, but we on a daily, hourly, in that process, we actually measure these things, right, as weather. We can also measure our greenhouse gases, airborne particles, snow and ice cover, ocean acidification, sea level rise, right, nutrient levels. And again, we have really great graphics and data sets on our website to help unpack things like looking at CO2 levels over the last 800,000 years, or looking at changes in global surface temperatures, or understanding changes in ice cover. Here's Arctic sea ice and how it's changed since this 1979 to 2000 average. And I think this is from 2017. So again, what's our data? What's our evidence? So we provide links and resources for you to look at those types of data sets. So if we want to turn to our biosphere and our geosphere, we can think about things in the biosphere like species ranges or species populations. The biosphere is what burns, right? And these wildfires that we're hearing about all over. We can look at biodiversity. We can think about soil quality, erosion, sedimentation, uplift and sinking of land, right? These are our processes in our geosphere. And then finally, if you look at the very core of our framework, what we did was identify the measurable changes that that affect the quality of human life most directly. What are the things that most directly affect the quality of our life? So our air quality, our water quality, health and disease, food availability, nutrition, and then where we can live, where we've been displaced, whether it's due to flooding or fires. And that these things affect our well-being and the well-being of the planet, right? And the ecosystems that we live in. So again, we are both a cause of change, and we also have to figure out and solve problems related to these measurable changes that are occurring all over the globe. And so we have put ourselves as humans both at the outside and also the heart of this graphic, of this framework, because we have a lot of decisions to make about how we are going to think about the kind of quality of human life that we want the next generations to come to have on this planet. So again, this is our full framework. I've introduced this to you as I would with adult learners, or maybe AP science students and undergraduate courses, but I would be doing this step-by-step very slowly over a much longer period of time with younger learners to build up the complexity of this. So again, this is a presentation really meant for older and adult learners. And again, you can access all of these slides and this information on the 101 page on our website. We also have this really great clickable infographic. So we call this the infographic, this version of our framework with all the different parts. So this clickable version of the infographic allows you to navigate to different site content. So if you want to learn more about burning of fossil fuels, you could click on burning of fossil fuels and it will take you to that page on our website. And then all the other topics that are on our infographic are hyperlinked. So you can navigate to all these different pages. So let's say I want to learn more about air temperatures. I can get to that page very easily. And again, see that map that I showed you earlier. But you can also look at different topics, again, that are in this framework based on this navigational page on what is global change. So let's say I want to look at measurable changes, and I want to look at specifically things that are in the biosphere. I could sort and just get the topics that are related to the biosphere, and then go to those pages and explore all the interrelations and different topics. I also want to point out that we have a version of this framework of the infographic that is written in more everyday language. So for example, instead of saying ocean circulation, it says movement of water in the oceans. So it's more accessible for learners of all ages. And we've also translated this into Spanish, and actually soon we will have on our website these resources in Danish as well, because we have colleagues in Denmark who are using these materials. So you can download all sorts of different versions, different sizes of both this full version that I shared with you and this everyday language version, and also in Spanish as well. And these versions that just show the main categories of the framework. And the way that a lot of our teachers are using this is sort of as an interactive word wall, right? So you can, again, build up the complexity of this slowly and add the icons, add the different topics as you build it up, as you introduce more concepts over time. But again, ultimately, this goal is that then students and learners are going to be able to build a systems perspective, right? They're going to be able to articulate ideas and see all of the relationships between physical, chemical, and biological processes that shape the world that we live in, and our climate and ecosystems. So this framework is really a lens through which to see the world, is often the way I think about it, or to see your science content, to look at what do I teach and how do I do that? And it's also kind of the You Are Here map, like what am I teaching today? What am I teaching tomorrow? How am I going to connect these dots? And so, for example, if you're teaching about photosynthesis or species interactions, what are the other topics you could be connecting to those big topics, right? How do you show those interrelationships? What are the measurable changes? What are the causes that I can be connecting and learning about? And yes, we do have the Spanish version in both the everyday language and the more advanced language that I shared with you today. Yes, we have the Spanish in both versions, which is great. Okay, so I would love to now give you some time to look at this framework, explore it for yourself. So I've created some Jamboards pages, if you click forward on the Jamboard link that you're still on, where you can take a look at this framework for yourself, and multiple people can work on the same frame. You could put your name on a sticky, but I'd love to know what you're teaching. What are the topics that are on this framework that you talk about, that you teach about, and you have your students explore in your own courses? And each person can use a different color pen to circle topics on the framework, and you could even try to use arrows to show how different topics are connected and how you connect them in your curriculum. So this is what the Jamboard page looks like. And I just want to point out that I know that the font is small, but Jamboard is great because you can zoom in really far. So you can click on this zoom button and you can click like 200 and it'll make the words really big. And then you can scroll around and navigate from there to be able to read everything that's on the infographic on the Jamboard. Okay. And yes, Denise asked, how might you use these in online classes? So I use this all the time in online work because we do have all of these materials on a Jamboard and ready to go on our website. All right, so is everyone able to get into the Jamboard? Let me click back and see how people are doing. So again, feel free to add your name on one of these pages and just claim one of the spots for yourself. And then you can start exploring and circling. Is everyone doing okay? Does anyone need the link again? Grab this. See some people signing on to the Jamboards. That's great. Please let me know if you're having any trouble navigating the Jamboard. Yes, and I will put the links again. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble, oops, with why is this? Sorry, I'm having trouble copying and pasting now into the.
I'll grab them for you, Jessica.
Can you grab them? Thank you. I'm sorry about that. I have not had this problem before. But I see people filling out and starting to add their names to some of the Jamboards. So that's great. And so I see some connections that are starting to happen. Awesome. And there's more. I'm going to share some more with you after we do this exercise. This is just so you can start exploring and have some time to think about the interconnections on our framework and what you teach. And again, as I mentioned, I really use this as sort of a you are here map, right? Like, what do you teach? What are you doing today? What are you doing tomorrow? How are you going to show that these topics are connected and related? And then the question, which I'll answer in a little bit, is how do you get your students to show that thinking? So this is really sort of how you would plan, how you would think about interconnections and relationships. So. All right, I'll give everyone just maybe another minute or two to keep making some connections. Show me what you're thinking, what you recognize on this framework as part of what you teach. So I'm seeing some comments from Paul. He says, physical, historical, earth science, natural disasters, pretty much all of it. Yep. Awesome. Some great connections being drawn. And I really like seeing when people show that they're connecting, right, causes and the earth system processes and the measurable changes, right? We really should be connecting across all three to really understand global change and how and why it's happening. So that's awesome. It's great to see those connections. All right, let's see if anyone else. Great, well, thank you all. That's great. So, back to the slides. All right, so moving forward, again, I like to do this activity because I like you to think about, again, what do I teach and how do I really make these connections? And so sometimes I do get people, as someone, I think Paul said, like, it's all of it. So circle the whole thing and say, this is all relevant to what I do. So now the question becomes, how do you make those connections visible and specific, explicit for your students and make sure that they understand and can take information about things like invasive species and species interactions or the ozone layer and pollutants or greenhouse gases and renewable energies and really connect the dots, right? Show that all of these things are interrelated and important. And so what we've done is we've taken the components of this infographic and we've turned them into individual icons, right, into these physical cards or digital cards that can be manipulated so that students and teachers in their planning can create models that represent what they want students to understand and or what students understand based on what they've learned in the classroom. How are these processes and phenomena interrelated? So we have lots of different versions on our website, again, of these cards, both in the full version and the everyday language, in Spanish as well, as I mentioned, and soon in Danish. And then, of course, we have lots of different versions of this Earth scene, both in color and black and white for you to use, either digitally or as printed copies. And it's been amazing seeing how this resource is used over the years. This is my colleague, Jen Pierce at Boise State University, who was featured on PBS NewsHour a few years ago, actually using this resource, projecting the icons in the Earth scene onto a whiteboard and having these third graders actually draw and explain the relationships between different parts of the world and how it works in a lesson about the greenhouse effect. And so we've created a number of digital tools that will allow you to use this for online learning. The first that I'm going to show you is this online interactive that we co-developed with HHMI. So in this interactive, you can drag and drop the icons onto the Earth scene, which I've introduced to you, and draw arrows to show the connections. You can also annotate your models by dropping down the sidebar and explain, add a description. What do you mean by a greenhouse effect is related to air temperature? What does that mean? And at what level do you understand it? There's also a really nice clickable version that gives you of the infographic that gives you definitions. And I do want to point out that this has been a CLEAN selected resource. So we're really grateful for CLEAN's work and partnership on this project. And so you can see how, like, if you start with a topic like ocean acidification, and actually in my own work as a biologist, as a scientist, I've studied how does ocean acidification affect life cycles and traits, how organisms grow in the ocean and how they can reproduce, right? So I've studied, you know, all sorts of organisms who have been subjected to ocean acidification. So why do we have ocean acidification? Well, about a third of the greenhouse gases that we put in our atmosphere are absorbed by our oceans. And those greenhouse gases are coming from things like agricultural activities and burning of fossil fuels, and because we're deforesting areas and there are other pollutants, or pollutant, you know, a pollutant of things like cement production, right? And so really what I'm also studying is that those greenhouse gases also enhance the greenhouse effect, which increase the air temperature. So a lot of the experiments that I ran actually looked at both the effects of ocean acidification as well as as water temperature, right? And how that changes over time, which is really a double whammy for these organisms that live in the ocean that make calcium carbonate shells. And then I can think about, okay, well, and then if the life cycles, you know, how these things grow and reproduce, if that's affected, that could really affect the populations and the biomass in different areas and where species can live, their ranges, and then how species interact, thinking about food webs. So you can see that you can visualize all of these different cascading events and interrelationships. And just starting with something very simple like ocean acidification, but connecting that, you know, land to ocean, land to air to ocean, to the biosphere visualization can be really powerful. And this interactive provides a lot of different options. You can export all of this information into a PowerPoint. You can make fill in the blank versions with or without arrows, and handouts that allow you to, again, provide spaces for students to provide explanations, evidence-based explanations. You can also change the background. You can, if you're, you know, studying kelp forests and you want to show a kelp forest in your model, or you want to show the San Francisco Bay, then you can use the interactive in this way. A new resource that I just started using and developing is also called Earth System Bingo. So you take these icons and you arrange them in a bingo card, and you can look at different data sets or videos or whatever it might be where the content is, and you ask students to make the connections, right? And you see who gets bingo and then who can really explain like what's going on. So for example, the Earth System Bingo cards you're seeing here were annotated by teachers who were looking at videos about river otters in their local environments. And so they were commenting on the different aspects of what they looked at related to the river otters and how that was connected to different Earth system processes on their bingo cards. So there are also just lots of examples of models on our website on different content pages. And again, you can download all of these resources from our teaching resources pages. There's also advice for how you can, again, use this as sort of a word wall. How do you build up the complexity over time of this graphic and introduce it to your students? And how do you support them with this modeling process? And again, we can also really be using this graphic for planning. So I very often use this for thinking about, again, what are the phenomena that I want to teach? I want to teach a unit about ocean acidification. I want to teach a unit about sea level rise. I want to develop a unit about biodiversity, right? So these are sort of the observable, measurable places where I can start and then contextualize even further for my own purposes. So there is a current sea level rise unit available on our website to download. And what we did was combine a lot of existing resources from the CLEAN website into a sea level rise unit. And we also provide example models that this is the model about sea level rise that students should be able to construct by the end of the unit. So, or something like this, right? Sometimes there's no one way to represent the ideas and relationships between different parts of the Earth system, but this is an example model of what you might get from students at the end of a unit. We've also created an entire planning guide that you can download to help you think about planning instructional units in this way. And you don't necessarily have to develop a whole new unit. You might just be able to, as I mentioned, sort of repurpose or reuse resources in the same way that we used all these excellent resources from the CLEAN website. So you can go through this 5-step process of planning, and I've used this with many different PLCs at different grade levels to support integrating this use of the modeling and UGC, understanding global change tools, into different units. We will have some new units available online soon that are from our various PLCs across the country. We've been really fortunate to get funding from NOAA and BWIT and also the California Science Project and support from the Lawrence Hall to develop new units about different topics. So some of the ones that are coming up are about salmon populations and starfish wasting disease and wildfires. And as I mentioned, these river otters. And a lot of our work, of course, during the pandemic has been completely online. So, all right. So again, that was a lot of information. That was just an overview of everything that we do and the kinds of resources that we've developed and the support that we provide through our PLCs and our workshops. And if you're interested in any of that, please reach out. But the last thing I just want to do today is have you, again, sort of further experience the materials through playing this game that I like to call Earth System Shuffle. So again, the point is that you can just become a little bit more experienced with the resource, with the different icons and looking at the Earth scene and the framework. And so you could also be thinking about how you might do this activity with your own students. There are lots of, there are actually more than a few. There are a few different versions and ways that I've done this. You could do this with breakout rooms, or if you need to do an asynchronous activity. I also really love playing this in the classroom. It's a great way to visualize the interconnections. So I just got the 5-minute warning. So just really quickly, I'll show you how this goes. If you go to frame 12 on the Jamboard, you can select one of the icons. So let's say I selected agricultural activities. So that's up here on this Jamboard on frame 12. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip forward even more. And so first I'm going to copy it, but not paste it. So let's say I copied agricultural activities. You can use the keyboard commands on your computer. And then you can flip forward, and I want to paste that icon onto whatever measurable change I think is most related to my topic, agricultural activities. So I'm going to say that I could definitely think about how agricultural activities are related to our health. So I might go there first. But you decide which one are you best prepared to explain, right? How you're connected to one of these 6 topics. And so you can go to that page that has the health icon, right? And I can paste that icon, the agricultural activities icon, onto the page. So again, I use keyboard commands. If you're having trouble with keyboard commands, you could also always just make a sticky that says agricultural activities and use that sticky and place it on the board. So again, you can do this, and then you can start to, make a model, draw some connections, write an explanation, right, of how agricultural activities are related to health, and take take a minute for that, and then you can go to a different one. So what's the next topic that you could connect your icon to, and maybe try to visit at least 3 or 4 different models. So if everyone just wants to go back really quickly to the Jamboard, I'll just fast flip forward. So again, you can try to copy something from this page and then decide where do I, oh, and I already see some popping up. Great. So how would I relate fishing and hunting, right, to food availability? And you can draw arrows and write explanations and connections. Just take a look at some of the other Jamboards. And I see some questions in the chat, and I am happy to answer those really shortly, but here, this is great. We're seeing some more icons pop up on different pages. Precipitation, freshwater availability. And again, what you really have to do is stretch students' thinking by asking them to make connections to more than 1 or 2 of these, right? So it helps students see how all of these different processes are interrelated. Okay. So I'm just going to wrap up, and then I'll be able to answer some of the questions that are in the chat, but I'll just show you some of the examples of models that we've gotten from other experiences with students and teachers, and it's really great to see. And again, then everyone is sort of responsible for a particular icon and making sure that that's connected to these different topics. So lots of ideas. So you could use breakout rooms, right, and have students really be able to share their ideas and models and talk to each other. Then you could ask students to combine their models, show interrelationships, and how different models could be connected, and maybe making a big consensus model with the class of what are the most important relationships that we've figured out through doing this activity. And again, as I mentioned, I really love doing this like in person in the classroom, super fun. To move around the room and just make different stations to be able to create these models in a collaborative way. So again, you can think about ways to modify this for your audience, use a different subset of the icons that are really relevant to your curriculum or your community and the global change issues that you're tackling. You could increase the number of icons over the course of the year and also have participants really advise and extend these models over time. So again, I've been really, really lucky. I've had some amazing colleagues and experiences working across the country to implement and share these resources in the classrooms and in professional development. Please reach out if you're interested in these opportunities. And again, we've, through this Global Change Project, we've created this conceptual framework that I shared with you, the tools for visualizing the connections and creating those models. And then finally, ideas for planning and how do you actually construct new units that involve thinking about systems thinking and the understanding global change tools. With that, I just want to thank my great team at UCMP and beyond at HHMI and our amazing advisory board. And again, please reach out to me with any questions or comments. Please check out our website, ugc.berkeley.edu, and our Twitter, which always has announcements about upcoming websites or webinars and updates to the website. So thank you all for your participation and great questions. And I can take a few more of those now. I'll look back at the chat.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Ms. He, I think you had a couple of questions that you'd harvested out that you want to ask. Maybe we have time for one of those at this point.
Yeah. So let's go to the chat box. There's a question from Denise. Ideas for using this asynchronously online or as an online assignment?
Yes, so you could have students be doing individual models, of course, asynchronously or synchronously, but you can also set up Jamboards in the way that I have now and ask students to be adding to them, right? Contributing and adding their, initialing their stickies or the contributions that they've made or identifying which color they're using. So there are different ways you can help students tag their work, especially if they're working asynchronously and you need to look back at it. But have them all collaborate and share ideas and build up the models over time. So there are lots of different ways that you can be doing this both synchronously and asynchronously. Okay. I hope that answers your question.
So, terrific question here. Is there a teacher user community that I can join to collaborate on how UGC is being used in the classrooms?
That's a great question. And again, we have regional professional learning communities, so PLCs of teachers who are using this tool in various ways. We don't have anything that's sort of open right now, but that is something that I really want to do, is create more of a Facebook page or something that's more interactive so that people can interact in a more open forum to anyone who might be using the tools. So please check our Twitter page and also the website. Hopefully we'll be creating something that's open to more people very soon. But also, if you're interested in starting a PLC with your colleagues, like, please reach out to me, because it's something that we do support in various districts and communities across the country.
That's awesome. One last question. I can imagine teachers building up diagrams over the course of several units of study. How do you recommend they save and share them with students as they build them over time in the classroom?
So they're really three ways, and I'll probably come up with a fourth, but the first way is that you actually print a large poster, right? And we do have teachers who've created these very nice laminated posters. I actually work with an eco-friendly print shop in Santa Cruz, California, that has created these for me, and they're amazing. So creating a poster that lives on your wall, that is a permanent sort of display that builds up over time. The second is that you use a projector, right? And you project from your screen onto a whiteboard. And of course, the third is just that you have a digital record that you're sharing with students that's available to them, and that you could either print out or, again, have them look at online in PowerPoint slides or however you share information with students that they can reference over time. So there are lots of different options. And again, if you're interested in those posters, please reach out to me. I can connect you with the print shop. They ship all over the country to people that I'm working with in school districts. But yeah, there are a lot of different ways that you can sort of just keep track and have sort of a common place, either online or physically in person in the classroom, to keep track of the global change topics that you're covering.
Great, thank you so much, Jessica. I'm going to steal the share from you here and get us wrapped up. A wonderful presentation and lots for us to look at. I'm sure we'll all be looking here for the next hour or so, so thank you for that. As a reminder, we do have another webinar coming up March 17th, and this one will focus on the topic of why is "if it can't be grown, it must be mined" important in your earth science classroom. So please watch for registration materials on that. Jessica's slides will be up along with the video from this webinar if you'd like to check it out on the AGI YouTube channel, probably sometime next week, and on the NAGT page as well. Post-webinar survey, Bradley, if you could drop the link, or Missy, into the chat box, that would be fantastic. We really do take into account all of the feedback that you provide for us on these post-webinar surveys, and it is the only way to get your certificate of participation if you would like one of those. So please do jump in, take a minute, and give us some feedback on this webinar, as always with the others. And just a reminder that this webinar series is brought to you by 3 organizations, the first one being NAGT. We would love to have you come and join us here at NAGT. We're just a great group of geoscience educators, and lots of member benefits for you there. Missy, you want to talk about NESTA real quick?
NESTA is we'd love to have you join us. We're a K-12 focused Earth and Space Science organization. Lots of going on with us as well. Visit our website. Thanks.
And Ed wasn't able to join us. He's in the classroom with 4th graders today, but on behalf of Ed Robeck, who's typically here with us, AGI, please do visit the AmericanGeosciences.org website and check out all the great information that's popping up there on Earth Science Week for 2022. And with that, I will go ahead and close us out. Again, thank you very much, Jessica, for your presentation today. Thank you to Bradley, who was working in the background for us, and to my other collaborators, Missy and Ed. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.